Hello, Jennifer.
Is this me?
This
Yes,
is
it
you.
is.
Awesome.
Yeah, sit down. Join us. Welcome.
Which one's Sam and which one's Jim?
No, that's
humiliating for both of us.
I'm Sam, and that's Jim. But it's weird.
That was polite. That she knows who I am. She
You
just
know what?
Yes.
Before you came in, Jim said that you guys used to date. So it's weird that you don't even know who
I
he is.
used to date you. Well, welcome to
Thank you for confirming.
Welcome to the club. One of hundreds. I can't hear myself in my ears.
Oh, you have to turn the things up. Go
Oh,
ahead,
okay,
babe.
all right.
Is that better?
Oh, there I am. Oh, I sound so sexy.
Yes.
When I go into Family Guy, I make them turn the volume way, way up.
Do you like to hear yourself or no?
I love to hear myself just to prove that I exist. And at home I do voiceover auditions. You can record
Into your
it
phone, sure.
on your phone, but I can't. I'm really horrible because I don't hear myself in my ears, and it's just I sound like a kid doing like a radio show.
Do you do it in the? I go in the closet, and I have a big built-in closet. I'll go in there and do my voiceovers and read it, and it's.
That's what she said. She said that's what my voiceover agent said. She said it's good if there's hanging clothes because it muffles ambient sound. But I don't know. It just seems like I've never gotten anything that I've done the voiceovers
Neither
for
have
that
I.
way. Yeah, I think you need to go in the studio and feel all professional. Like
Don't people know what you sound like though at this point? Like you have a very distinct voice.
I do, but my voice changes a lot. Like when I play Tiffany, I talk like this. Chucky, we belong, Dad. And then when I play like a sultry person, I talk like this, like, hi, honey, how you doing? So I have like different sort of voices.
That's the Jennifer I like.
Sultry Jennifer.
Hi, sweetie.
I like that. Yeah.
I don't remember dating you, but I'm sure it was really good.
Yeah, it was fun. Trust me, I'll fill in the details when you go.
Okay, thanks.
So when you go into when you go into a closet and you do it, do you listen back to it? Like I'll listen back for a second, like, oh, I'm too close.
I hate myself. I hate how I sound. I love how I sound in the headphones, but I don't have the head. I get so frustrated. And then I told my voiceover agent, I was like, don't send me any voiceovers unless it's for a lot of money because I just get so angry. I hate how I sound. I spend 2 or 3 hours doing the voiceover. And, the audition, and it's basically they want what they want.
Sure.
You're sure they're listening to a lot of people. And it's like after 2 syllables, I know if they want me or not. I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. But I hate to listen to myself. And so I feel like I have to get a studio built. I want a studio built sort of like this one in my guest house where I can have, push some buttons and put a little reverb on and, maybe a little ambient music or something. And then for sure, I think I'll nab one of those big commercials.
Well, you sound so different. Like when you're going in for ADR or when you're doing something like in a studio, and they're in the different room than you are, and it's just you with the music stand in front. You sound so much different and bassier than you do talking into your iPhone. I get no indication of what I'm going to sound like.
Yeah, when I talk into my iPhone, my voice sounds very, very thin. And then also too, I'll start and I get like, oh, that sounds horrible. Like right in the middle of it, I have like so much self-loathing. And then I click like erase, delete, and they're like, you sure you want to delete? And I'm like, yes, delete now, delete now. Yeah.
It's just too easy. Like you end up doing it over and over and over again because it's too easy to just delete it right there.
Yeah, right.
Well, are you filled with self-doubt? Like,
self-doubt?
Yeah, do you have a lot of that?
Janine Garofalo, I think her production company was called I Hate Myself Productions. And I was like, oh my God, I know exactly what she's talking about. But now I don't. They say, I used to hear people, women go like, oh my God, ever since I hit my 40s, life really began. And, I'm so much happier now. And in my 20s, I was like, well, yeah. I mean, what would they say? I mean, you kind of got to make the best of a bad situation. But actually, I love where I am right now. Like, I feel so good about myself.
Oh, good.
And I don't really have a lot of self-doubt at all. Like, I feel like I can do anything, when I want to. After I finish taking my nap.
Right.
I'm really lazy. Like, in the last few years, I feel like, well, I'm just hibernating. And, when I get the energy, I'm going to do that really great, big, important thing that I've always been planning to do.
So when did you start to gain confidence like that? At what point in your life or career or whatever?
Well, I would say maybe about 10 years ago. And I started getting very involved in poker, and I love playing poker.
You're dating a poker guy, right?
Yes, Phil Locke. He's known as the Unabomber. He's,
Are you jealous?
Sure.
Are you jealous, Jen?
Right.
No, I played poker. I mastered it, and I stopped.
Yeah,
oh, cool.
No.
Yeah.
No, but are you jealous that Phil Locke is the one, since I obviously dated you, forgot all about you? Are you jealous that Phil nabbed this
Why would I be jealous?
truly wonderful woman?
We had a great time together.
We did, yeah.
You wanted more than I did. I had to cut you loose.
Oh, wow.
That's
I hate
a
when that happens.
That's a shame.
Oh, look, someone's taking a picture of me.
How long have you been dating Phil Locke? You guys have been together for a while.
We've been together for 14 years.
Okay.
Wow.
And did he get you totally into poker?
I'm drinking some tea now. Let me finish drinking my tea, and then I will answer your question.
Take your time.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I actually met him at a poker game. It was called the Celebrity Invitational. It's where celebrities and poker players play together in harmony. And I was like, wow, I just really love this poker thing. And I was very filled with hubris. I thought I was like the most amazing poker player ever. Like, I wasn't like those other celebrities that thought they played poker. I knew I really, really was good at poker. So I busted out of the tournament in about 4.5 minutes. So then I wandered around like bothering all the poker players because I thought, well, it'd be really great to have a poker player as a buddy, and we could go to the Commerce Casino and we could play like all baller like. So that was, I really had that intention in my head, like I'm going to meet a poker player and he's going to take me around to the casino and we're going to play together. And I met Phil, and he wasn't one of the guys I had in mind because, you know, some of the poker players, they were very suave bolo and, you know, just like more James Bondy. And Phil, I don't know if you're familiar with him in you know, the radio world, but he's super goofy. I mean, he's very famous when he won the Celebrity Invitational. He was like shadow boxing and doing push-ups and, you know, doing all this bad behavior, and it started all these editorials like, should people behave like that in poker? So he sort of ushered in the new era of...
Like McEnroe in tennis.
Yeah, well, no. Phil Hellmuth is like McEnroe in tennis. He's like, they call him the poker brat. He has tantrums when he loses, and he stands up and berates the other people for their bad play that knocked him out of the tournament. I played with him before, too. He's actually a really nice guy, but he gets very worked up. Phil is really... He's the kind of guy, like, I would say, if somebody did a survey of who do you most want at your home poker game, he's the guy you want at your home poker game because he's really goofy and easygoing and very fun.
Sure.
When you date, so part of being a poker player obviously is the bluffing and the whole no one knows what you're thinking. So as a person at home, is it difficult to read him, or is that just a thing he can do when he plays cards?
I can read Phil very well because he's my boyfriend. You know, you guys, when you have the girlfriends and the wives and everything, they always know what you're up to. So don't fool yourself and think like, oh, they don't know I was out with the guys last night, you know, at the strip joint. They know. They're either choosing not to say anything, or they're being very passive aggressive and, you know, sort of pretending like they don't know, and you don't know what they're upset about.
Always know what he's up to.
I kind of can pick up his tells just because I know him so well, and I'm not going to say what they are, but we try not to play at the same table, you know, because Phil says it's a no-win situation. To me, I'm very competitive. Like, I love when I knock Phil out or take a big pot off of him, except for, you know, kind of the fallout. But he says, I hate when I take a big pot off of you, and I hate when you take a big pot off of me. And then if we soft play each other, then everyone's like, oh, you two are colluding. He said, there's no way to win. But I mean, I don't mind if Phil knocks me out of a tournament or takes a big pot off of me, and I don't mind if I take a pot off of him. But I don't like when people are like, oh, you two, you're soft playing each other, which we do not do. We hard play each other.
Here's what Phil lied about, though. He doesn't hate taking a pot off you. He hates when you take one off him, because that'd be like if you guys went out for, like, if he kept getting auditions that you weren't getting, you'd be like, what the fuck's he doing? This is my world.
It is really true. When I first came out to LA, I was dating an actor, and he was 10 years older than me. He was a very good actor. And it took me like 4 years to get my first part. And my first part was, it was a television series called Boone, and it was like kind of the Elvis Presley story. It only lasted one season. And I was a girlfriend. That's too much information.
No, it's not. That's great to know.
But I remember I came home one day, and I was upset because the director, something had happened on the set. I was like, you know, and I was very young. I was in my 20s. And I called up my boyfriend, who was in his 30s, and he yelled at me. He goes, at least you have a job. And he hung up. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if this actor on actor thing is going to work out. And, you know, I've dated a lot of actors in my lifetime, and I think it's better actor and poker player. I think that's a really good combination.
Did you date Michael Madsen?
Formula. I did not date him. I did a movie with him, and I loved working with him.
You guys were great together.
I did 2 movies with him. We had great chemistry, and we had such a fun time making The Getaway. That was like, I sometimes say it's like the best show on location shoot I ever had, because we were like, I don't know, we were in Arizona or the Midwest. We were shooting. We were in these really small towns. The whole crew would go out every single night to these honky tonks, and we buy cowboy hats and turquoise, and it was sort of like it was kind of like the idea of what it is like to be on a film set. But yeah, he's really funny. He's got a great sense of humor. He's very politically incorrect.
Yes.
So, you know, sometimes he says stuff and you're like, look around before you laugh. You want to make sure nobody hears you laughing at his joke. But, you know, he's incorrigible. That's what he is.
I was watching an early interview of yours on Johnny Carson's show.
I mean, I say one thing about Michael Madsen that I think is interesting. When he was doing this movie, he was supposed to be the John Travolta part in Pulp Fiction. They'd actually written that to be like, what is the character in Reservoir Dogs? Vinny. It was supposed to be that character in Reservoir Dogs. And Quentin Tarantino was like, please, I wrote this part for you. But he said he didn't want to be the bad guy. Also, too, every single day the producers were coming in, they wanted him to be the Kevin Bacon character.
Wait, who did want to be the bad guy? Madsen?
Madsen, he said, I don't want to get typecast as the bad guy. So he did Free Willy instead, and that's what renovated John Travolta's career. I mean, rejuvenated it.
Wow.
He also turned down the Kevin Bacon part in River Wild.
And isn't the character in John Travolta's character in Pulp Fiction is his brother?
Yeah,
that
but it was
brother.
Yeah, but it was originally that character. But, you know, he's gone on to do a lot of Quentin Tarantino movies. So, you know, Quentin Tarantino did not hold a grudge. Sure. Please talk to me about
Free Willy is a
Johnny
big movie.
Carson. Yes. Well, you know what? It's really funny because he says, it's really funny when moms with their little kids, they see me coming. The mom grabs the kid and tries to run away because they think I'm the guy that cut off the ear. And the little kid is going towards me. It's like, it's the dad in Free Willy. I go out with him to restaurants and stuff. And little kids would come and they go, are you Free Willy's daddy? And he'd go, yes, son, I am. He loves kids. He's like, do you want a picture? So, yeah. So I guess he accomplished his objective of not being the nasty person all the time, but he's usually the nasty person.
Yeah, since then, he's kind of been the nasty person a lot.
Yeah, but well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So you're going to talk to me about Johnny Carson?
Go on now, ask.
Yeah.
I'll have to run the
I
interview.
love Johnny Carson. Oh, my God.
Well, I was watching it, and I was kind of getting annoyed because I felt like he wasn't giving you anything. I felt like you were like giving, and he was just kind of sitting there.
Okay, this is a story with Johnny Carson. Like, the first time I was on, Johnny loved me, and I loved doing him. And I would do on Johnny Carson sort of like a Marilyn Monroe-y thing. And you come in with half a joke, and he'd take the joke, and he'd wrap it all up like in a package and hand it back to you like a fully formed joke. So all you do is come in with sort of attitude and an idea, and then he, would make a joke out of it. He's a consummate talk show host. It's really strange to me that now people they don't remember Johnny Carson. Like he was, to me, he's like a giant in the field. So he used to call all the time. Anytime a guest would fall out, he'd be like, can Jennifer come in? And my husband at the time, he was like, you don't want to be the girl. You don't want to be like the matinee lady. You don't want to be the person that's had 100 Johnny Carson appearances. And I'm like, why not? Because Sam was saying, like, well, you're a very serious actress. You don't want to just be in and go in and be a goof. So I would only go when I had something to promote. But I was very naive. Like,
you were turning Carson down?
Yeah, a lot. Because
wow.
I didn't want to be the Johnny Carson girl. But, Sam, my ex-husband, said, you don't want to be the Johnny Carson girl. But, I wasn't a comedian. I was an actress. So, like comedians, that's like the holy grail. But then that one show that you saw, it's really funny. It was the last show that I did. And I went in and I was so used to him always making the jokes. Like, I would never do the punchline. He would always do the punchline. And he had a terrible show. First of all, John Larroquette was on. He's usually a great guest, but he was doing promoting a show where he played an alcoholic. So it wasn't the funny, congenial John Larroquette. It was a very serious John Larroquette that had just done a very serious, sort of
connecting to the character,
Emmy-worthy. Yeah. So that had not gone so well. And then a magician came on. And, Johnny loves magicians, and the magician did some sort of thing that bombed. He did like a trick that didn't really work very well. So by the time I came out, he was ready to go home. He was already on the bus on the way home, or in his car. I'm sure he doesn't take the bus. And I went out there, and I was wearing like this little sort of, it was the 80s. So I was wearing, the Madonna corsety, innerwear, lingerie as outerwear. And I remember the Johnny Carson guy, I think it was Jim McCauley, stuck his head, and he goes, Johnny will love it. He's going to love your outfit. He'll have fun with it. So I went in and I did my little half a joke, and I looked at him and he didn't finish the joke. And then I did another half a joke, and I looked at him, his eyes were totally blank. He was totally not there. And I felt kind of like, the little kid when the dad has a stroke and she's like 3 years old and she has to take the wheel. Or you're jumping out of the plane and the parachute instructor, you know, the guy that you're thinking is gonna, you know, pull the cord passes out. He was not there.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, and this is where evolved the Jennifer Tilly you know today that just will not shut up on the air. I turned into this whole different character where I just started talking. I was like, and I was like, I have to save myself. I have to save myself. And I remember when I was talking about my voice instructor, and she was like, you have a problem with your voice. And I said, and then she pulled something out. Guess what it was? And all he had to say is anything he could say. An ostrich, a Volkswagen, whatever. All he had to say was something, get a big laugh. And he looked at me really blankly and he goes, I have no idea. And I was like,
oh, so you got
I was like, a neck brace. She pulled out a neck brace. So anyway, afterwards, my peeps, it's really bad. And they're like, Johnny's not happy. It was really bad. It was a bad appearance. And everyone's all somber like there was a funeral. And I was like, oh. And they go, and then they said, one of the guys said, your outfit, he thought it was inappropriate. You came out in like a bustier. And I was like, Tim McCauley said he'd love it. He was thrown by your outfit. And then the next day, apparently people came in. They said, oh, the show was so boring, I almost turned it off. And then Jennifer Tilly came in, and it was really funny. So then he started getting all these accolades. And then my publicist said, he wants you to come in day after tomorrow. But I was really spooked because it was the first time I'd had what I thought was a bad show. And
After how many? How many was that in?
Like 8 or something. And then Jimmy broke, and my husband was doing the Tracy Ullman show at the time. He goes, oh yeah, sometimes you have to save yourself. He said, oh, I saw your show, and I go, Johnny wasn't there. He goes, yeah, once in a while you have to save yourself. You know, he's a stand-up comedian, he's a warm-up guy. So anyway, I was meaning to come back. I go, no, I'll come back when I have something to promote, my mantra. And then all of a sudden they announced he was going off the air. And now everybody's coming in to say goodbye to him. And, you know, Bette Midler went in and sang the show. So all these A-list guests. And, you know, I was below C-list at that point. I hadn't done really anything. I was on like Hill Street Blues or whatever. So I was like the person that he would call in when he didn't have anybody. And now everybody wanted to come and say goodbyes. So I never got to say goodbye to him. And I felt like really sad about that. And then like years later, like 20 years later, I was at the Palm and a waiter came up to me and he said, Johnny used to come in all the time. And he said, you know, after his show went down, and he seemed kind of sad. And once I went up to him and I said, you know, one of my, you know, I really like to watch on your show is Jennifer Tilly. And he said, he lit up and he said, Jennifer Tilly, she was one of my favorite guests. So I felt like it was a voice from beyond the grave saying, look, I felt bad about our last episode. And then the ironic thing is that's the only episode that they include in Best of Carson. So that's the
one
show.
That's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. It's everywhere. And it was on Best of Carson because I think he realized the next day, I think he thought like, oh, that was a bad appearance because he didn't do any jokes. But then he realized, no, it was a funny appearance because it was just funny. But you know what? I loved him, and I've been on a lot of great talk shows, and I think Johnny was the best. There's never going to be another Johnny Carson.
I agree. Did you ever speak to him outside? Because people who did the show said that he was kind of a bit difficult or hard to get to know outside the show.
You know, the Gary Shandling show is sort of similar to what it's like. It never occurred to me that anybody would make chit chat because in between, like people go, oh, you know, as soon as you go to a commercial, it just turns off, and apparently, supposedly David Letterman does it too. But to me, I like to think about the next segment. You like to think about your jokes or what worked and what didn't work. And he's working on the next segment too. And also too, like on film, they always go like, oh, don't go all out for the rehearsal. Save it for camera. So if you're making chit chat, you say something funny during the commercial, you sort of shot your wad. Yeah. So okay, now can you hear me?
Even better.
Okay. Yeah, but so he was not super chatty in between or before the show or anything that. He was always very pleasant, but I never expected him to, you know, be like, Jennifer, I'm having a great barbecue at my house next week, and why don't you come?
Yeah, people said that they wanted to know him so badly.
Yeah, that was never like a goal for you. Like you were never like, I'm going to try to, he likes me. This is like my 8th time on the show. Maybe I should pursue a personal relationship.
You get this vibe. I had this feeling that he had great affection for me.
I see.
But the first time that I was on the show, they said, they go, oh, we need to do a pre-interview. It might have been my first talk show ever. I was like, pre-interview? I said, I'm good in front of an audience. I won't run out of stuff to say. And they go, oh, everyone else says that. But when you get in front of Johnny Carson, I remember he said, he's like the great north wind. They called him the Great North Wind. They said he's such a presence that people just clam up. And then they also said, Johnny likes to go off the script. So if he goes off the script, and that's what they used to tell me with Jim Carrey too. If he goes off the script, you just get him back to the script. I'm just a little girl. Johnny Carson's the great Johnny Carson. I'm supposed to be his babysitter. But then the first time I went on, it was like maybe not such a great appearance. And they were deciding whether to have me on again. And Bob Dolce brought me on the first time. And he was like, it wasn't such a great appearance. And when my publicist was trying to get me on again, they went to Jim McCauley because Bob Dolce's like, yeah. And they looked at the tape and they said, oh, yeah, well, we can see where she went off the script and that part wasn't so good. And they go, no, that was the script. And they looked at the script, they save everything. And they're like, oh, my God, it was the script. And so they said to me, Jennifer, feel free to go off the script whenever possible. They said, you're better when you're off the script. So after that, I kind of had carte blanche. And, Johnny, he likes to kind of go with the flow. He doesn't like to be pinned down.
He was really not sorry. He was really good at just like lobbing things up and then stepping out of the way and like just letting people shine.
Absolutely, he was great. I read that book that his lawyer wrote, and you feel
we interviewed him for that what was it about Henry Bushkin?
Yeah, you feel a little bit. Sort of like, well, it's a little bit of invasion of privacy, but then you're very grateful to it because I think it showed him as a human. And, that story about when he broke into his ex-wife's apartment and saw a picture of her with her old boyfriend and sort of fell against the wall and was crying. You don't really think of that. You just remember him making snarky jokes about how much alimony he has to pay her and stuff. So it does humanize him. Also, too, I went to the Marilyn Monroe auction and I was sitting next to a guy who was a huge Marilyn fan. And he said he met the maid that wrote the book about, it was called Marilyn Uncensored Undercovers or Marilyn Private, Marilyn something. And it was just basically the maid telling stories about how depressed Marilyn was and how she'd lie in bed like naked and eat pork chops and like rub her, not pork chops, beef ribs. She'd eat ribs and like rub her fingers on the sheets and everything. And he said to her, why did you write that book? That was such a violation. You were privy to the inner Marilyn and you shouldn't have written that book. But I was glad she wrote that book because, that's like it was like probably the closest approximation to Marilyn being a human as opposed to being like this sex goddess.
You want to see vulnerability in these icons sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like just so you can relate to them as people at all. Did you have to do that with Jim Carrey on Liar Liar? Did you have to kind of rein him in?
Well, Jim Carrey, the thing is, before I did Liar Liar, and I think I remember reading Matthew Broderick's like, didn't really like working with Jim Carrey. I'm paraphrasing, I don't know. I was reading about other people. I kind of understand when I work with him. I loved working with him, by the way, because he's insanely creative. Like, I'm used to doing low-budget movies, and, you get 3 or 4 takes. 7 takes is a lot. You get it, you move on. Jim was very stiff sometimes in the earlier takes, and then all of a sudden he'd break through and he'd be brilliant. And at the point where everyone else would say, let's move on, he was just getting started. And then he'd do that take, and then it would be hysterical. You wouldn't think he could be any funnier. And then the next take, more and more, like more Baroque and more curlicues. And pretty soon he's like slamming the toilet lid on his head and stuff. And so the only thing with Jim is that they had 3 cameras going at all times. Like even if it was my close-up, they had a camera on me, a camera, a 2-shot, and a camera on Jim, just in case he thought of something funny to do during my close-up.
Oh, wow.
So it was never your close-up. And the first time that happened, I was very unaware. And, I started off to a bad start. And I was like, why waste film? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Can we start over again? I saw Jim's face. I saw everyone's face. And I was like, oh, my God. I did not realize that it was basically Jim's scene or that, but he was very nice to me. And Tom Shadyac had worked with him before, and he understood that, the fires of creativity never die. A lot of people, they're very off during the other person's close-up, but Jim gives 110%. So sometimes, he'll think of something very funny to say during your close-up, but we were not allowed to improvise, and I love to improvise. They would be said, like if you said to Jim, for example, oh, did you pick up that bread? And his line is yes. If he tells like some insane story about going down the street and they were out of bread and he ends up in Mexico and he's being pursued by, the narcos or whatever, when he finishes, you can't ask him any follow-up questions. You can't be like, what? The narcos? You have to say your next line, which is like, great. They're like, please do not go down that road with Jim. Only Jim is allowed to go down that road. And I think they thought like, one crazy, insane genius in a movie is enough. And we were all there to kind of support him. And at the end of the movie, towards the end of the movie, the cinematographer said to me, Jennifer, I worked on the Godfather movies, and we've already shot more footage than Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 put together.
Oh, my God.
At the junket, the director said to us, me and Amanda, he says, I kind of have to apologize to you girls. I had no idea what I put you guys through until I saw come through all the footage. Like sometimes he'd do 18 takes, 24 takes.
Can I ask you a question about, sorry, but when you said Jim would do stuff during your close-up, does that get a little annoying? Like, okay, this is my close-up, so because there's a camera on him, it's going to be like he's going to be forced to do stuff that takes the attention, or you didn't care?
Not at all.
Okay.
Everyone loved Jim. Everybody knew that he was the whole reason the movie was being made. There's no liar, liar without Jim Carrey. I mean, and so you like to be like able to be like, oh, I want to be Jim Carrey too, but there's only room for one Jim Carrey in a movie. You cannot have everybody being Jim Carrey.
Right.
So it didn't bother me at all. I was just embarrassed because on that movie I think he was making like $18 million, and everybody else was making scale because there's only room in the paycheck for one Jim Carrey as well, But we were all incredibly grateful. That movie opened huge. I think it's the only movie I was ever in that had a huge opening, and it was very good for my career.
Well, you're now like pretty synonymous with the Chucky franchise.
Yes, yes. This is my fourth Chucky movie.
Right, which is amazing.
Out today on, let me do my little plug, on VOD and Blu-ray. It's really hard for me to remember because of Blu-ray and VOD, these are, I'm a child of the 70s. These are like phrases that don't trip off the tongue very easily. I always remember October 3rd, but I go October 3rd on video on demand and Blu-ray. But the kids are all used to this. This is how they
I
do
watched
it. You used to have to go to the movies and see it. Like I saw Jaws in the theater, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know if I'll ever see Jaws again.
I saw the movie last week in a theater. Oh my God, it's so great.
Jaws?
No, Chucky. But it's so great on the widescreen. Like I can't imagine that Jaws is that great on your iPad. So, that's the sad thing is a lot of movies they make this way to be released directly because they've said this is how people watch movies. In fact, the movie I try to not mention this, but a lot of the Chucky the movie's been pirated already. People are like, what do you mean it comes out tomorrow? I already watched it. But of course, you don't get the extras, you don't get the quality. When I was filming a movie in Bulgaria, and we went to the premiere of Cold Mountain because it had not Bulgaria, Romania. Yes, that was a very good pirate imitation. In fact, I remember that's why it didn't work out with us because you kept going during the sex act, and
you were putting it in and it hurt
a little bit. Yeah, but that's okay. It's fine here in the studio. Entertain the legions. So, yes, in Romania, there was a guy right in front of me at the premiere with a video camera, and nobody was stopping him. And he was filming the entire movie, I guess, to, release online or something. And he kept, adjusting it and making sure it worked and everything. I was like, oh, my God, at premieres in L.A., you never have a guy with a video camera in front of you, filming the movie for pirating purposes.
Hide it, at least, if you're going to do it. At least try to be. Don't they have things that can detect that now?
Well, he wasn't even trying to hide it. It was a giant camera. This was 15 years ago. He's like, the camera's the size of a baby and the screen was glowing, but it's in Romania. They're probably used to people filming movies in the movies. And so a lot of times you see those pirated movies and people are getting up and leaving in the middle of the film and stuff. So it's really better to get the VOD.
See the original.
Blu-ray, yes.
Yeah, you can get it on iTunes store. I got it on my Apple TV, so I watched it yesterday.
Did you buy it?
Did you really watch it?
Yeah. They gave me
I got
a Blu-ray
impressed.
copy of it, and I watched it. Yesterday I watched Curse of Chucky and then Cult of Chucky back to back.
Oh my gosh, you
I
like
did.
Curse of Chucky? You watched Curse of Chucky first.
And yeah, just so
And
I
then
could
Cult
make
of
sure
Chucky.
that I was in the right place. I
Right,
loved it
right,
because usually when you get to the 7th incarnation
Mm-hmm.
of one of these horror movie franchises, they kind of throw out the original
Yeah.
and just start doing random shit, and it's just kind of a mess. And
Right.
and you're
It becomes
just
too campy.
yeah, and you're just watching it because yeah, I like the monster and blah blah blah. But I love that like it feels like the deeper this franchise goes, the more they go back to the original and
Right.
like draw out this story because like this movie is really way more than any of the other ones, part of this bigger story that lasts throughout all 7 of them.
Right. Don Mancini is a huge horror fan, and he's like Chucky's biggest fan, really. He's been doing the Chucky movies. He wrote the first one 30 years ago when he was right out of college, and he's written every single one, and he's directed the last 3. So he really knows how to give the fans what they want, and
Yeah.
because he's a horror film aficionado, if you look at a lot of Chucky films, there's like homages to other films that have gone before, and then he loves like sort of like the little inside jokes, like in this movie, not to give anything away, there's like a little tip of the hat to Bound, and you know the last movie, Curse of Chucky, was a little bit Wait Until Dark, and Seed of Chucky, there's a little bit of Joan Crawford, and there's a birthday party, which is like the most wonderful birthday party that Tiffany is throwing for her child, and Tiffany is, you know, just like very, you know, grand genois. Did I pronounce that word right?
Yes.
It's my favorite word, but I have to go on. The greatest thing about the internet now, like I know a lot of words because we didn't have TV when we were growing up. And so I know all these words, but you never hear them in conversation. On the internet, you can go on and you say pronunciation, and there's somebody goes, grand genois. Grand genois. And I repeat after them, and then I try to sprinkle it into
No,
my
that's the second
conversation.
greatest thing on the internet. That's
Yeah.
not the greatest thing on the internet.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, you know.